Welcome to an epic journey through one of the most tumultuous and transformative periods in human history, the French Revolution. It was an era defined by radical ideals, bloody conflict, and the birth of modern political thought. From the palaces of Versailles to the streets of Paris, this revolution promised liberty, equality, and fraternity, but paved its way with guillotines and ended in the rise of an emperor. This is the story of how France and the world changed forever. To understand the revolution, we must first look at the society it overthrew. The old regime. French society was rigidly divided into three estates. The first estate was the clergy. Church leaders were wealthy, owning 10% of the land, yet they paid almost no taxes. The second estate was the nobility. These aristocrats owned a massive 20% of the land, and like the clergy, paid almost no taxes. Then there was the third estate, everyone else. This group made up a staggering 97% of the French people. The third estate was a diverse group, but united by deep discontent. This 97% included the bourgeoisie, bankers, merchants, and professionals, who were the educated middle class. They believed strongly in the Enlightenment ideals of liberty and equality. Below them were the urban workers, struggling tradespeople and laborers who often faced hunger due to low wages and rising bread prices. Finally, the vast majority were the peasants. They comprised 80% of France's population and paid about half their income in dues, tithes, and taxes, creating immense resentment for the privileges of the nobles. They were the foundation, yet the most oppressed. Beyond social inequality, France was drowning in economic troubles. A heavy tax burden and widespread crop failures in the 1780s led to grain shortages and starvation. Making matters worse, the nation had amassed massive debt from constant warfare, including supporting the American Revolution. France's crisis was compounded by failed leadership. King Louis XVI was deeply indecisive. His queen, Marie Antoinette, became a symbol of royal extravagance. Her excessive spending earned her the infamous nickname Madame Deficit. The monarchy's inability to govern and its indifference to the people's suffering was a fuse waiting for a spark. The final ingredient for revolution was the powerful spread of Enlightenment ideas. This was a true philosophical revolution. Thinkers like Rousseau and Voltaire inspired new views on power, authority, and the fundamental rights of citizens. The American Revolution demonstrated that these ideals were achievable, and the Third Estate began to demand equality, liberty, and democracy for France as well. By May 1789, the financial crisis forced Louis XVI to take a desperate step. He called a meeting of the Estates General. This assembly of representatives from all three estates had not met in 175 years. The king's goal was to approve new taxes on the nobility. However, the immediate controversy was over voting. The traditional system gave one vote per estate, meaning the first and second estates could always outvote the 97% of the third estate. This unfair system led to a revolutionary break. The Third Estate delegates decided they were the true voice of France and formed the National Assembly. They declared this the end of absolute monarchy and the birth of representative government. Locked out of their meeting hall by the king, they moved to a nearby indoor tennis court. There, they took the famous tennis court oath, vowing not to leave until a new constitution was written. The political tension soon erupted into violence. Rumors spread that the king was planning to use military force. This became the spark. On July 14, 1789, a furious mob stormed the Bastille prison, a fortress and royal armory, searching specifically for gunpowder and arms. It was a bloody day. The prison guards were killed, and their heads were gruesomely paraded on pikes. This dramatic event was a symbolic victory, marking the start of the violent revolution and is still celebrated today as Bastille Day. News of the Bastille's fall ignited a period known as the Great Fear. Rebellion spreads rapidly from Paris to the countryside as peasants rose violently against their oppressors. The peasants carried out manor attacks, breaking into noble manor houses and systematically destroying the legal papers that bound them to feudal dues. The revolution was also driven by basic survival. In October 1789, Parisian women rioted over the skyrocketing price of bread. They demanded immediate action from the government. This led to the march. Thousands of women marched 12 miles from Paris to the royal palace at Versailles. They were demanding the National Assembly provide bread for their starving families. Their desperation led to a palace invasion. The women broke in, killed guards, and brutally forced Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette to leave Versailles and return to Paris. The king and queen would never see the palace again. On the political front, the National Assembly created one of history's most influential documents, the Declaration of the Rights of Man. Adopted in August 1789, it was inspired by the American Declaration of Independence. This historic document proclaimed the revolutionary ideal: men are born and remain free and equal in rights. Its core principles guaranteed equal justice, freedom of speech, and freedom of religion, all encapsulated by the iconic slogan, liberty, equality, fraternity. The National Assembly soon turned its attention to France's massive debt, deciding on the state control of the church. To raise money, the Assembly seized church lands and declared church officials to be state employees. While financially necessary for the revolutionary government, this action created a significant division. It deeply alarmed millions of devout peasants, driving a wedge between the religious countryside and the secular bourgeoisie who led the revolution. Trapped in Paris and stripped of power, the royal family made a desperate move in June 1791. The king and queen attempted to escape to the Austrian Netherlands, hoping to take refuge with their foreign allies. However, they were recognized and captured at the border before they could leave French territory. They were returned to Paris under guard. This attempt to abandon the nation sealed their fate and dramatically increased the influence of the revolution's radical elements. Despite the king's attempted flight, the National Assembly completed the Constitution of 1791. This new constitution created a limited constitutional monarchy, which officially stripped the king of his absolute authority. They established the Legislative Assembly as the new governing body. This body was responsible for making laws and approving declarations of war, marking the formal birth of a representative democracy in France. Within the new government, ideological factions split France. On the left were the radicals. They were utterly opposed to monarchy and demanded sweeping revolutionary changes to society. On the right were the conservatives. They upheld the idea of a limited monarchy and wanted minimal changes to tradition. In the center were the moderates. They supported some reforms but prioritized stability and order over radical change. The revolution's fate became entwined with foreign powers. Austria and Prussia demanded that Louis be restored to his full authority. In response, the Legislative Assembly declared war in April 1792. The war intensified radical sentiment. Mobs carried out the infamous September massacres, raiding prisons and murdering over 1,000 inmates. The royal family was imprisoned, and Louis was put on trial for treason. The ultimate end came on January 21st, 1793. The king falls. Louis XVI was beheaded by the guillotine, ending centuries of Bourbon rule. Following the king's execution, a new, more radical phase began with the rise of Robespierre. Maximilien Robespierre, the powerful Jacobin leader, gained total power as the head of the Committee of Public Safety. His goal was to build a republic of virtue. He instituted radical changes, changing the calendar to eliminate Sundays and closing churches in an attempt to erase France's entire religious and royal past. Robespierre's rule ushered in the darkest chapter, the Reign of Terror, which lasted from 1793 to 1794. The Committee of Public Safety sought out enemies of the revolution and guillotined approximately 40,000 people, including Queen Marie Antoinette. But the true irony lies in the victims. Most were peasants and workers, members of the urban poor and middle class, the very people the revolution claimed it was trying to help. The madness could not last. In a moment of turning on the tyrant, members of the National Convention turned on Robespierre, fearing they would be his next victims. This became known as the Thermidorian reaction. Robespierre himself was arrested and executed on July 28, 1794, finally ending the terror. French public opinion shifted in a return to moderation, craving stability. Moderate leaders created the new government in 1795, the Directory, a two-house legislature with executive power held by 5 men from the upper middle class. But the Directory's time was short. They soon found the perfect general to command France's armies, a young, ambitious man named Napoleon Bonaparte, who would dramatically change European history forever.